Salesforce is all about data, or in other words, we can say Salesforce is a fancy database. So when we are dealing with Lightning Web Components, when we are designing pages on Lightning Web Components, most of the time we have to deal with the data in LWC. So when we are talking about data, the most important thing in LWC is to know how to fetch the data, or I would say one of the very basic thing that we should know is how to bring the data to LWC and how to manipulate the data using LWC. To fetch the data, we have a few ways to fetch the data in LWC. One of the ways that we have discussed in our previous session is using Apex classes and methods. And the other one is uiRecordApi that we are going to talk about today. And third one is, which is introduced last year, is GraphQL. We'll have separate sessions on the GraphQL in coming sessions, but currently we're going to talk about uiRecordApi. So in the uiRecordApi, we have several methods available either to bring the data into LWC or to manipulate the data. But there are some key things that we need to take in our mind when we are dealing with, when we are working with uiRecordApi. One thing is uiRecordApi deals with single record at a time, except getRecords method. We have like several methods of uiRecordApi, but most of them deal with single record at a time. Like there's getRecord method, and there is create record or update record and delete record. All of them handle single record at a time, but only the getRecords method is the one which can handle multiple data. So in this session, we are going to talk about the getRecord and the getRecords method in LWC. And there are other key things to keep in mind when we're working with the uiRecordApi is that it takes care of FLS and OLS, and it respects sharing rule, which means if user doesn't have a read access and we are trying to fetch some fields using getRecord, it will throw a runtime error. If user doesn't have access, getRecord won't fetch the data. Same goes for the manipulation. If user must have read and write access if he is trying to either create the data or update the data or delete the data. And other important thing when working with uiRecordApi is if we are calling our component on in Lightning experience in the record detail page, and if the standard record page is saved, then this getRecord method is going to re-execute itself again. This is the one very powerful feature and very useful feature of uiRecordApi. And the other one is when we are updating the data, and if we update the data using uiRecordApi, then it is going to automatically refresh the record detail page, standard record detail page I'm talking about here. So these are the common features of uiRecordApi, and I will show all these features in the coming session, because now we are not designing any UIs. So in future sessions, we are gonna design UIs. At that time, instead of calling these components on the Aura application, I'm gonna call these components in the in Lightning experience, and at that time I'll show you when we talk about the UI or when we design the UIs. Now we are just dealing with JavaScript and how to bring the data. Currently I'm gonna call this on the Aura app and then just console log. I won't call it in the UI. So first thing, let's begin with the uiRecordApi to get the data. And if we want to use the getRecord, the first thing that we need to do is we can use this little snippet, or you can memorize this syntax. Sorry about that. We don't want GraphQL right now. We just want this one, second one, imgr. So here, if you want to use this snippet, that it is coming from the extension that I have uploaded on the VS Code marketplace. You can do check out this extension, and if you don't want to use that, you have to probably memorize it, or you have to Google it every time you want to use it. So here, we can import this getRecord, and if we want to fetch the data, what we need to do is we need to use this wire decorator. So wire decorator is not just for Apex, it can be used with uiRecordApi and also with the GraphQL. So to fetch the data using getRecord, let's fetch the contact data. So for that, I'll create a method getContactRecord, and here I'll add one parameter result. It's just a parameter name, it's just a noun, and it could be anything, but usually I prefer to give name result here. And then we are gonna decorate it using this wire decorator, and in the parentheses we need to mention the name of the method that we are going to wire. In case of Apex, it was name of the Apex method, and here name of the actually import statement that we have used to import the method. And then first thing is the name of the method, and the second thing is the parameters in object form. So here one parameter is going to be record ID. So currently we are not designing any UIs. We are definitely gonna design beautiful UIs in coming sessions, but currently we are just clarifying the syntax and how to use these features to get and manipulate the data in LWC. So currently we're not dealing with UIs. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just go to Salesforce here, and I'm gonna bring one of the contact IDs here, and we can paste it here. Then we can add a comma here. And the second thing is we have two parameters here. One is the fields, and field is gonna be an array of fields. So if we want to bring name, we need to import the name field here. It is going to be this one. So usually this is going to be a noun, and I'm gonna give it a name as, let's bring name field of account, contact, and here it is going to be contact dot name. Let's bring one more field. It is going to be email. Here it is going to be email. I have to be very careful with the spellings. Okay, so usually it's a noun, name underscore name. That is not fair. It is going to be name underscore field, and it is going to be email underscore field. So it's just a noun. We could give any name here, but usually I give name of the fields, then add this underscore field at the end. So name field, we can copy it here, and then we can add comma separated value here, name field, and here, since this is going to be a key of the object, we need to add a colon here. And okay, so one thing with the wire method is either wire decorator can be added on the methods, and it can be added on the properties also. Instead of making it method, what I can do is I can create like contact, I can give it like contact record, and then we can just directly use it in the UI. But we have to, for that we have to use so many template ifs, and we never know in JavaScript like when we got the data, because in real world we will show a spinner or some message that data is being loaded, and once the data is loaded we want to remove that message. So with the property we cannot do that. Like this is a legitimate syntax of using wire decorator, but I don't think that this is like more useful. It's better to use function. It is better to use JavaScript method because it brings more power and more feature. And so instead of using it like this in a property way, we can stick to this method syntax. So here, like, we have to do what we have done when we are dealing with Apex here. So here we need to check if we got the data. Either we can use it like result.data here, or what we could do is we can just use JavaScript object destructuring, and we can fetch the data key and the error key from this result object. And then instead of using result.data everywhere, we can just get rid of the data result here, and then in the else if statement I will use it if there is any error. Okay, so here we can just console log here. I'm gonna just use console log here till the time we are not designing any UI, so we have to stick with this console logs. And let's copy and paste it here, and then I'll see error here. Okay, now I'll deploy. Hope everything is all fine. Okay, so now let's judgment time here. So I have added my LWC component here, and if I click on this update record, it should console log the data. It should, yeah. So we got the data here. So to read it in a more readable form, what we could do is, instead of just console logging data, what we could do is we can use JSON.stringify so that we can see it in JSON format. That would be easier to read. Okay, so now if we reload this page, okay, so now it's more readable. To make it even more readable, what we could do is, we on the Google, we can use any JSON viewer. Usually I prefer this JSON viewer. You can use any JSON viewer out there. So you can just paste it and format it. And here, if we want to get the data, we need to go, like, we need to fetch the fields key. Under the fields key, we have to fetch name of the field, and then we have to use the dot notation and use value. And here, like, what usually I do is, there is a LWC method where you will pass the data and it will give you the data, give you the name of the field. You will pass this data and you will pass the name of the field. But usually, like, I prefer to go in a old school way. So what I do is, if I want email, so from the JSON, what we have learned is, from data we have to go on fields. So first thing is, we have to fetch fields, and will go like data dot fields, and then we go dot email, and then dot value. And I have to be very careful with the spelling. So if there is any spelling mistake, it would throw an error. So it is fields, and then email with e caps, and then value, everything in small. So this should print email on the console log. And if we want to see name, if we need the name here, then it is to use data dot fields dot, and here we are going with name field. So this is gonna print email and name. So here now, if I go to my Aura application here and reload this page, okay, so this is the way to fetch the email and the name from this JSON. This is like how we read the JSON. Like, here we have, like, in the JSON, first key is the fields, and then email, and then name, and then we have some standard fields that are coming, and we haven't mentioned. We didn't mention to bring ID. So by default, it will bring these system fields, ID and last modified, and record type ID, and record type info, and system mod stamp time, and the API name, and if there is any child relationships we have added, then those going to be under this key. So this is how we fetch the data using getRecord API of getRecord method of uiRecordApi. So there are several other methods such as getRecords and update record or delete record or create record, and we're going to talk about in the coming sessions. So stay tuned for those methods. Thank you so much.